Hi! Tis the season for uncomfortable family gatherings and AI-generated Coca-Cola commercials. It's Christmas time, or it is when I'm writing this, and I hope it still is Christmas time when I'm posting this video. Everyone knows what Christmas is, a beloved holiday that millions of people around the world participate in. Pine trees, reindeers, cookies and milk, gift-giving, snow, all of it was built to be one of the most capitalistic and money-hungry holidays out of any given year. And you know what? People eat it up every single time. I work in retail now, as I've mentioned in previous videos. You should totally check those out, by the way. And I am seeing firsthand just how much we overdo Christmas as a society. Why are there Christmas trees and Christmas decorations out on my store floor when it is literally the day after Halloween? No one needs Christmas decorations that soon, and if you do, there is something wrong with you. What happened to just enjoying November? Why can't you give your lawn time to breathe before you start putting Christmas decorations out on it? It's not even Christmas yet, it's literally November 1st, and I am hearing Christmas music over the speakers at my job, and people are walking in wearing ugly Christmas sweaters in 80-degree weather. And I'm not trying to sound like a Grinch or anything, believe it or not, I like Christmas. To an extent. If anything, it's the one time of year where I can geek out about my favorite myths of the season, starting with the big man himself, Santa Claus, who I kind of have a little bit of an issue with. No, it's not because I didn't get the present I wanted or he left me coal in my stocking. No, it's because the man is literally a home invader. We've completely normalized the idea of a stranger wearing a red hat with little white bits, breaking into our home and leaving us gifts or giving us coal if we've been bad, and he knows that somehow, and he takes milk and cookies from us as like a thanks for breaking into my home, and he gets an okay for it because he's magical. Like, really? Magic or not, I don't want someone breaking into my home. I feel like that's common sense, but hey, have you seen the current society we're living in? And that's just our Santa, like the American Santa, the beer, guns, and eagle-flying Santa. But did you know that there are over 100 variations of Santa Claus across different cultures and countries, all with their own designs and tales? Probably not, but I had some really cool history teachers, and because of that, I've grown a fascination with things like learning the origins of where things come from. More specifically, in this case, the origins of Santa Claus. So I thought with the holidays basically already being here that it'd be fun to take a closer look at some of the unique and weird versions of Santa from all across the world, whether they come from folklore, films, or cultural traditions. Each one adds its own little spin on things that I really find fascinating, and I'd love to share some of them with you today. Starting off with one of the earliest depictions of Santa being Odin, the god of war and death. And you're probably asking, Red, that doesn't sound very Christmassy at all, that isn't very wholesome for the children. And you would be correct, but Odin is also the god of wisdom, magic, poetry, royalty, animals, and creation. So I'd say in this scenario he gets a pass. And in turn of being the god of all of those things, he is at the very center of Yule. Yule is a pagan holiday that celebrates the return of light and warmth that happens after the winter solstice. And since Odin is at the center of Yule, he leads this thing called the Wild Hunt, which involves him flying through the night on his horse with a group of ghost warriors in tow. This is probably where we get the whole thing of Santa riding on his sleigh with a bunch of reindeer, but the reindeer stuff comes up later, I will admit. There's also little things like Odin's beard and his cloak that might have led to portrayals of Santa having a beard and like Santa's little outfit that he has going on, but we can't really confirm that, unfortunately. As for the more widely regarded start for Santa Claus, you have a monk named Saint Nicholas. Known for his kindness, gift-giving, and red and white robes, Saint Nicholas was at the center of many legends in the 4th century. It's said that he gave away all his wealth and traveled to the countryside helping the poor and the sick. One of the most popular tales is that he saved 3 poor sisters from being sold into slavery or prostitution by their father by providing them with a dowry so they could be married off. It's because of tales like this that he eventually became known as the protector of children and sailors. Even after his death and the Protestant Reformation, St. Nicholas's legacy maintained a positive reputation which led to him being one of the most popular saints in Europe. However, it wouldn't be until 1773 that the legends of St. Nicholas came into American pop culture, all thanks to groups of Dutch families that gathered to honor the anniversary of his death. The Dutch are also where we get the name Santa Claus from, technically speaking. Originally, the Dutch nickname for St. Nicholas was Sinterklaas, which obviously sounds a lot like Santa Claus, and since it was in America where the Dutch started honoring St. Nicholas's death, it was probably just like a mishearing thing amongst Americans and the Dutch. These depictions of St. Nicholas are most likely where we get the iconography for Santa Claus in general, the red hat and the fluffy white beard, to be more specific. It wouldn't be until the 1870s that we get a more concrete depiction of Santa Claus. This is all thanks to an American cartoonist by the name of Thomas Nast, who published his first drawing of Santa in Harper's Weekly, volume number 7. His drawing depicted Santa sporting stars and stripes and delivering presents to Union soldiers. It was from this point forward that Nast's Santa became the standard for what most people think about when they think about Santa, and he would go on to draw this variation of Santa in the Harper's Weekly for the next 20 or so years. This design of Santa only evolved further over the years with the involvement of Coca-Cola. Coke has hired many artists over its lifetime as a company, which is very ironic considering the fact of them using AI in one of their most recent commercials. Again, we're not going to talk about that. What we're here to talk about is Fred Meinzen. He illustrated some of the first ads for Coca-Cola. He illustrated their first billboard in 1925 and has produced a myriad of work for Coke in numerous magazines, most notably the Collier's and the Saturday Evening Post. Amongst a lot of other things he did, the first Santa Claus drawings for Coca-Cola were done by him. They were made with a reference of a department store Santa drinking a bottle of Coke, as like a live reference. The paintings themselves are heavily inspired by Thomas Nast's work. This depiction of Santa, the small Santa drinking Coke, is what you're gonna think about almost every year when you think about Santa, more often than not. And that is all thanks to Thomas Nast and Fred Meinzen creating this iconic image of Santa. I guess it is also technically Coca-Cola's doing as well. You also have poems like "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" that give origin to Santa's more supernatural qualities, like going down the chimney and being able to visit every single house in the world on Christmas Eve. This poem also is the source for a lot of like traditions we do around Christmas, or just things we believe, like Santa's reindeer, or like hanging up stockings by the fireplace. And I apologize, I know that is a big old chunk of a lot of history just all at once, but all of that is important to understanding how Santa has changed in pop culture over the years. And it's the same fundamentals really when it comes to media almost every single time. It's an old guy who lives in the North Pole with his wife and a bunch of elves that make toys in a workshop. It's the same old guy that delivers presents to children all across the world in one night. It's the old guy who wears the same suit, same general look, and when it comes to media, it's his personality that varies, usually amongst other things. This is what I'm gonna call the spectrum of Santa. On one end, you have the happiest, most jolliest fella you ever did see, and on the other, you have the most violent and horrifying thing to ever grace your eyes. And it's in this spectrum, I believe almost every single Santa, live action or cartoon, has to fall into. For example, Santa Claus is Coming to Town. It's a beloved 1970s stop-motion Christmas film about the origins of Santa Claus, who for some reason is a redhead. I've never considered Santa being a redhead until I saw this. That's not the point though. This film, believe it or not, is World War II propaganda. Fun, right? Great wholesome thing to sit your kids down and watch around the fireplace. And if you watch the film with this in mind, it kind of makes sense. I can't say the main villain's name, but he's supposed to be a stand-in for Hitler, which isn't something I thought I'd be saying in a video about Santa Claus's origins. But he owns like this little island thing where he works kids to death, basically. And Kris Kringle, our main protagonist, who is supposed to represent like American army troops. It's weird. It's a weird analogy, but the bad guy dies at the end. Can you tell I had a really hard time following the plot? plot because I had a really hard time following the plot. But everything ends fine, like a normal Christmas story, I guess. The bad guy dies or is just gone for the rest of the thing, and everyone lives happily ever after, and Santa's old and he delivers presents to everyone. It's great, I guess. But let's do a complete 180 from how depressing that was and talk about how Marvel's version of Santa is canonically a mutant. Canonically, Santa is one of the most powerful mutants in Marvel Comics as of the 1991 Marvel Holiday Special. This mutation is purely described as magical, which basically is like plot armor for like Santa can do whatever he wants. Which I mean is accurate, I guess, but it doesn't really give us much insight into what he can do. But we can pick up little bits and pieces from other appearances he's made in the comics, like he is basically immortal. He can deadlift 2 tons. He has a magical sack that basically functions like a bag of holding. He can know if someone is good or bad at a glance, and apparently he has some kind of mind control capabilities, which isn't really ever explained in the comics. Due to him being a mutant though, he also just gets into like a lot of hijinks. Also, the fact that he's Santa's too, I guess that does kind of count. For example, another World War II thing, Hitler basically kidnapped Santa, and Steve, you know, Captain America, and Bucky Barnes, you know, the Winter Soldier, have to save Santa Claus from Hitler. He also has ties to most of like your big Marvel factions like the X-Men, She-Hulk, Spider-Man, S.H.I.E.L.D., the Avengers, and many more, purely because he's Santa. He doesn't need an explanation. Doctor Who also has its own Santa that strictly follows like the myth of like the original Santa Claus, but we're not going to talk about that because that's boring. What we're going to talk about are these guys, the Robo-forms. They're typically minions to like a greater villain in the Doctor Who universe, and more often than not, they are dressed in little tiny Santa Claus outfits. They were first seen as minions to Syraxis in the episode The Christmas Invasion. They disguise themselves as Santa in an attempt to find the 10th Doctor who had just regenerated. In this episode, it is showcased how they have different kinds of tech too, like this Christmas tree that tried to kill Rose and her family in the safety of their own home. In The Runaway Bride, they were also used by the Empress Rachnos in order to like capture Donna Noble and her boyfriend, but her boyfriend at the time was also working for Rachnos. It's a whole thing. Just like before, they are dressed in little tiny Santa costumes, but this time they have instruments and little tiny exploding Christmas decorations, which I think are pretty cool. They only have one more appearance in the show as of late, and that is when the 11th Doctor gets trapped in the Pandorica. They are seen amongst all the other enemies of the Doctor, such as Daleks, Cybermen, and the Sontarans. It's a very minor role. They don't do much. They're only known for wearing little tiny Santa costumes and being minions to bigger, cooler villains. It kinda sucks, honestly, now that I think about it. Now, if you turn the dial into more of like cartoony stuff, you get like one of 2 categories. You get either super cute or you get horrendously evil and weird, which still falls into the spectrum of Santa, but there's like no middle ground. Most notably, one from my childhood is Robot Santa from Futurama. Definitely a wholesome classic you should totally be letting your 4 to 5-year-old watch. This is sarcasm. Please do not let your child watch Futurama at that young of an age. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Robot Santa, also known as Evil Santa or Killer Santa, is a robot designed by the Family Robot Company in the Futurama universe. It was made to judge whether people were naughty or nice and give out presents and punishments to those who deserved them. Due to some time travel shenanigans though, his standards became way too high and deemed everyone as naughty except for the one time that Dr. Zoidberg was on the nice list. But thanks to those time travel shenanigans, now every year on Xmas, the people in the Futurama universe have to stay inside and like barricade themselves in their homes just so that Robot Santa doesn't come in and kill them. Because what is Christmas if not a time to be cowering inside indoors out of fear that you're gonna get murdered by a killer robot with the safety of your loved ones? And in all honesty, that's like a really nice Christmas like sentiment, you know? Maybe to me, because I'm weird, but I don't know. But if that's not really your thing, we could talk about South Park Santa, which has roots in the very beginning of the franchise. In 1995, Fox Company executive Brian Goodine paid Stone and Parker $2,000 to create an animated short video that he could send to friends as like a little Christmas card. As a result of this request, Jesus vs. Santa was created. The story starts with Jesus descending to South Park where he meets our main cast. He asks them to take them to a local mall where he finds Santa. According to Jesus, Santa's diminished the memory of Jesus' birthday by giving out presents and everything on Christmas every year. Santa, fed up with this, says it's time to finish this. This leads to an all-out fight between Santa and Jesus, killing innocent bystanders along the way. There's something where Kenny gets killed and his body gets devoured by rats, and then there's also a whole thing where Kyle's just like, hey, we get presents every day because we're Jewish. And then all the boys decide, yeah, let's be Jewish. This is the first of many cameos for Santa in the South Park franchise, my favorite of which being in A Woodland Critter Christmas, where Santa kills the Antichrist. And of course, there's your more standard depictions of Santa in most children's cartoons, shows like My Life as a Teenage Robot, Phineas and Ferb, Wow Wow Websy, SpongeBob, Jimmy Neutron, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman, Muppets, Sesame Street. Literally any kids TV show has an episode, if it makes it to Christmas time, has an episode with something about Santa. You're gonna be hard pressed to find one that does not have Santa. That's like a classic staple of children's cartoons at this point. I'd list them all if I had the time, but that would be a very extensive list, and I don't have the mental capacity to handle that. Maybe one day in the future, maybe next Christmas, that will be my gift to you. Every single cartoon appearance of Santa Claus in the world. Will I do it? Probably not. But hopefully you're satisfied with what I was able to tell you today, and maybe you learned something new. I hope you did. And if you didn't and you knew all this already, well, that's good for you, bub. You get a gold star. No one cares. Sorry, that was way meaner than I meant for it to come off as. Good for you for learning. But I think that's all I have to say for now. Have a beautiful rest of your day and a very happy holidays. And if you made it this far to this point in the video, here is 100 cool points. Because why not? Because we all know that no one watches to this, I think. And if you do, enjoy those cool points. Have a beautiful rest of your day, wherever you are. Stay safe, and thank you for watching.